final day of the Senior Oral Defense at Carroll Morgan School. It's been a great pleasure for me to work with this year's senior class. All of you know that this is my first year at Carroll Morgan School, and I appreciate very deeply the welcome that I've been given by this community. Diego Rivera just presented on sportsmanship and gamesmanship, and in that presentation he talked openly about the concept of honor and also the concept of civility. And I would like to go on record as saying that this is one of the most civil communities that I have ever had the pleasure of working in. It has really been inspiring to me to see the capacity that the young people in the school have for treating each other with dignity and respect. Not going to cry or anything like that. With that in mind, I would like you to make sure that if you have an electronic device in the room, that you're using technology responsibly. Please look at the device and check that it is on silent. And then ask yourself whether it's important for you to have it out in your hand. Okay? It is so difficult in the contemporary world to give our full attention to any one thing, but I find that when I do that, wonderful things happen. So I encourage everyone to try it more often, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce Pedro Long.
Thank you. I'm now going to show you a short video of something that happens commonly on households around the world. You might be familiar with this type of situation because it is much possible for you to be encountering this at home. The British Broadcast Corporation, or the BBC, posted this true story about a child named Kieran, and is presented by actors in order to keep the child's identity safe.
Kieran started playing games when he was 7 years old. He did it with his friends at first, but he usually got bored and wanted to do something else. Kieran never got bored. By the time he was 13, he was playing every night after school.
I've got Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, PSP, pretty much everything really. And now I can play online, which means I can play against anyone in the world. And beat them too.
His mum and dad noticed the time he was spending in his room.
Why don't you give the computer a miss today, eh? Then you can let me fix the car and we can watch the football.
I've got to get to the next level.
When he was online, no one nagged him or told him what to do. He was one of the highest ranked players in the top 200. Every day he was challenged to game, and he never turned anyone down. He was so busy getting better and better that some nights he didn't have time to go to bed. He even stopped washing or cleaning his teeth. It couldn't go on.
That's it, son. I'm taking the computer away.
Oh, you can't.
Have you only 13 hours a day?
I'll cut down. I promise.
I've said that before.
I mean it this time. Please, I'll do anything. Just don't take away my computer.
All right, son. One more chance.
But Kieran didn't stop himself. He would fall asleep in class before rushing home to get online. Then he'd play and play long after his parents went to bed. By the time he was 15, he dropped out of school. But eventually, Kieran realized enough was enough.
Okay, as you can see, this child, that the parenting couldn't control him, they didn't know how to respond to his addiction, and just keep that in mind. Hello, my name is Pedro Rama, and the topic I researched for my senior oral defense is the problem of video game addiction. And my title is Good Hobby, Bad Habit. Technology has many beneficial effects to our daily lives. These include 24/7 communication, easier access to information, efficiency, entertainment, and more. As opposed to popular perception, it is even beneficial to gamers. In a presentation on video games done by Daphne Bellier, she shows a common lab done by experts to show how video gamers are faster reacting to conflicts than others. I'm going to ask you to participate with me. So you're going to have to actually play this game with me. I'm going to show you colored words. I want you to shout out the color of the ink. Let's begin. Red, white, orange, yellow, white, blue. This game demonstrates the benefits of video gaming, although these benefits are only true to a certain extent. The main causes of technology addiction are parenting, unlimited access, and social isolation. Parenting. We have two different ways that children are getting away with using excessive amounts of technology. Primarily, some parents are not spending enough time actually figuring out if their child is spending too much time using technology. And secondly, the parents that do find out that their child is showing addictive patterns don't know the most efficient methods to stopping the child from encountering technology for long hours. Unlimited access. On the Huffington Post, Chris Rowan states how a 2010 Kaiser Foundation study showed that elementary age children use on average 7.5 hours per day of entertainment technology. 75% of these children have TVs in their bedrooms, and 50% of North American homes have the TV on all day. Children clearly have unlimited access to technology on a daily manner, and this is another one of the causes that they're getting addicted. Social isolation. In an article on WebMD, a popular page on the net where people search their symptoms for medication and everything, about how video games are becoming a major psychological problem amongst teens. Sherry Raw explains how the person is trying to change the way they feel by taking something outside of themselves. The cocaine addict learns, I don't like the way I feel. I take a line of cocaine. For gamers, it's the fantasy world that makes them feel better. Clearly, we can see how kids that have trouble fitting into society can be easily lured into the world of addiction. This brings us to the question, what is addiction? A governmental website stated how the American Society of Addiction Medicine, ASAM, recently released a new definition of addiction as a chronic brain disorder, officially proposing for the first time that addiction is not limited to substance use. All addictions, whether chemical or behavioral, share certain characteristics, including salience, compulsive use, or loss of control, mood modification, and the alleviation of distress, tolerance and withdrawal, and the continuation despite continuous negative consequences. So here to my solution. In the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, the book utilized by all psychologists, which defines and states all disorders and addictions that currently exist, video game addiction is not considered an official addiction. Therefore, currently, psychologists are not providing the time and effort that this deserves to be researched and studied. Addiction to technology must be added to the manual so we could have sufficient research and studies to show which are the most efficient methods utilized in order to prevent and treat addictive behavioral patterns due to technology. This is something that we do not currently possess, and as technology advances, we will see this problem growing. In conclusion, at the end of the day, the world of gaming and technological devices is present in all of our lives, whether it is for communication or to escape to a virtual world. Some might think this is irrelevant to our health, and others might not, but the evidence reflects that we are indeed being impacted in a negative way. This is not to say that technology is bad or that it should not be utilized, because it does facilitate our day-to-day lives in a plethora of aspects. And this is why we tend to create such a dependency on it. But if we do recognize that an excessive amount of technology can lead to a type of unhealthy behavioral pattern, we will keep hurting certain members of our society. It is time for a change, and we must demand in-depth information on the reality that is being addicted to technology. We must ask for this as a human right, not a privilege. Thank you. Questions?
At the beginning of your presentation, you stated how a major problem is that parents don't know what to do when they encounter this situation. How would you suggest that as maybe the government to let them know what to do and how to go on when they encounter this problem?
Yeah, the problem right now is that, as I said, psychologists right now don't consider this an addiction, so we don't have enough research or knowledge on how to treat it properly. So either the government should fund more research on this, or we should actually demand for this, because many of us, I know that have seen technology taking over some parts of our lives. Therefore, I do truly believe that we should enforce this to be added to the manual of psychology, and therefore we could see some greater progress.
What do you think is the ultimate cause of addiction?
Well, there's not an ultimate cause, but per se, but children, at the start of the video, who spend 13 hours of the day, increased amount of time, it is shown by research that it does increase your dopamine as well as drugs do. So when some children have addictive behavioral patterns, they have increased dopamine, and this can lead to an addictive pattern in their lives.
So to clarify, Pedro, you're saying what people are actually addicted to is the dopamine hit that they get. So they're addicted to their own body's release of dopamine in response to
the child feels good when he has increased amount of dopamine, and therefore the technology is actually giving it to them when it comes to extreme levels of overuse.
What would you recommend to parents? What would you recommend parents to do in order to control their child, for them not to get addicted to
I understand. Yeah. Many parents do not control the extracurricular activities that children are doing on a day-to-day life. So they arrive from school at 2 and stay from 2 in the afternoon till late at night, playing video games, and without control about how much time they're spending on using it. But again, we do not know the most efficient methods because not much time has been added and studied as to this addiction. So we can find ways that we think will help us, but we want the most efficient methods given to us by psychologists, and so we could actually deal with this current situation as we would like to. Mr. Chair.
Well, one sort of a question I have about your presentation is that when we look at drugs and their like addictability, the drugs, they are like actually addictive substances, so they do something to, they don't just increase dopamine, but they also like have sort of like chemical properties that are addictive, which is why heroin and cocaine are so addictive, versus like less addictive drugs like caffeine or alcohol, for example. So video games in terms of like their addictive nature, how do you justify like what is something that is addictive, can be addictive or not? And if technology is something that is a highly addictive substance, which I mean, there's plenty of research that would say that, and should we then be converting our schools to these like bring your own device technology in every classroom, paperless world?
Yeah, like I do understand your point as to like we're seeing technology in all aspects of our lives, but like you have to keep in mind that technology does help us in like much more efficient ways to do things like papers at school and everything, and that's why it must be controlled as to the level of like when you use it for entertainment excessively, or when you're not using it for the proper like. There's no proper way to use it, but if you don't use it control, it can lead to addictive behaviors. And as to your first question, that yeah, drugs actually do physically make you addicted to it, and technology doesn't. But technology addiction, you have to see it more as like gambling addiction. Gambling addiction, you don't actually inherit. So you don't get a drug. You're actually just increasing your dopamine as you're winning, or as you're playing a gambler. So it's a different type of addiction, more like gambling. Any other questions?
Did you find any research on video game addictions? Because you mentioned that there's not enough funding, but did you find any research about that?
I did find research that said that, for example, in some countries it is sometimes considered an addiction, and like for example in the Netherlands, I found that when they did a big survey in different schools, and it was like about 3% of children that were actually tested, they were showing addictive patterns to technology. But as to like in the United States, I didn't find much information on how much of the population is actually being addicted to technology. Ms. Rosa.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you a hard question now, okay? Do you think that there are people at the school who are addicted to technology?
Definitely. Like,
You don't need to name any names.
no, like, right here, for example, like Ernesto and no, like we have lived through a high school. Like we sometimes have gone to sleep 2 or 3 a.m. playing video games because we want to end something, finish doing something in the game or anything. Like like many children in the school can see addictive patterns to a video game. And this is why I said at first, you might even see this at home. Like we can see this like almost in every household, that you have a child with a computer in his room or a video game in his room. He will try to go to sleep hours late playing the game. So this is why I think this is a big
Yeah,
topic.
my sense is that many young people struggle with this, and it's a struggle that adults are largely unaware of. The true depth and like strength of that struggle that's going on, to balance like the pleasure that you get from this with the responsibilities that you have.
I agree.
Thanks for making it public. I appreciate it.
Who do you think should be responsible for funding additional research?
Like this depends. Like the government should have more awareness of this addiction, or maybe like the same with cigarette companies. They have to say this is addictive, and etc. I found a lot of stories in my research about people trying to sue big gaming companies, they sued big gaming companies because they said, I've spent 20,000 hours, over 20,000 hours playing since 2004. This is a real story. And he tried to sue a company named, that created a game named Lineage. And because he said, I didn't get any awareness of how addictive this was. So I think the government should actually enforce big companies that, for example, Blizzard or companies like those that create a lot of games to actually say that they could go into addictive patterns.